It's story time. Story time. Let's read it story time. Story time. I'm geeked, it's story time. Story time. You and me, it's story time. Story time. Let's achieve. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Story Time with me, Kayla. How are you all doing on this beautiful sunny Sunday? I hope you're doing well. And of course, as always, making sure to please still stay safe. Now, we are still in the month of February, which means we are still celebrating Black History. And I am so excited to introduce tonight's book. But before I do, let me introduce our author. Introducing Mélissa Francisco. She has created an entire series that I think is so important, especially in the Black community. Now, without further ado, the book we will be reading tonight is called Learning About My Heritage, 4 Awesome African Figures. You ready to see what this book is all about? Ready, set, let's begin. Learning About My Heritage, 4 Awesome African Figures, written by Mélissa Francisco. Here we go. Mansa Musa, the richest man who ever lived. More than 700 years ago, long before you were born, Mansa Musa ruled as the Emperor of Mali. At the time, Mali was an extremely wealthy trading empire in West Africa, thanks to its reserves of gold, salt, and ivory. One day, Emperor Musa decided to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca. For this journey, he was accompanied by approximately 10,000 servants and as many kilos of gold. On the way, the empire and his procession stopped in Cairo, Egypt. There, Mansa Musa generously offered kilos and kilos of gold to the poor, and the Sultan, who, impressed by his gesture, invited them to stay in his palaces. During their stay in Egypt, Mansa Musa and his servants spent so much gold that everywhere in Africa and also in Europe, people heard about the journey of the one who was given the nickname, the Emperor whose gold never ends. Back in Mali, Mansa Musa's mission was to make his empire a land of knowledge. To do so, he invited the greatest architects and scholars and built sumptuous libraries, universities, and mosques in several cities of Mali. This is how, under his reign, Mansa Musa made Mali the greatest empire of knowledge of the time, whose admiration went beyond the African borders. As for him, thanks to all the wealth he was able to amass, he remains to this day the richest man who ever lived. Queen Nzinga Mbandi, Nzinga of Ndongo and Mataba. 500 years ago, in the kingdom of Ndongo, present-day Angola, ruled King Ngola Mbandi, brother of Nzinga Mbandi. Unlike her brother, the king, Nzinga was a brave and very intelligent woman. One day, while Portugal wanted to take over his kingdom, the king decided to send his sister, Nzinga, to negotiate a peace treaty with the Portuguese governor. Thanks to her negotiating skills, the Portuguese governor promised Nzinga to leave the kingdom of Ndongo in peace. Unfortunately, shortly after this meeting, King Ngola died, and Portugal decided to break its promise to Nzinga. Nzinga, who then became queen of Ndongo, was forced to flee the Portuguese invasion. She took refuge in the neighboring territory of Matamba, from where she prepared her counterattack. Now queen of both Ndongo and Mataba, the brave and cunning Queen Nzinga decided to train in combat, to spy on the Portuguese, and to create alliances with their enemies in order to defeat them and chase them from her kingdom. This tactic paid off. Thanks to her perseverance and intelligence, Queen Nzinga Mbandi succeeded in recovering the kingdom of Indogo from the Portuguese. Yasuki, the Black Samurai. 500 years ago, a man from Africa arrived in Japan. As soon as his foot touched the ground, a crowd of curious Japanese gathered to see this dark-skinned foreigner. This very noticeable arrival reached the ears of the daimyo, governor of the region, Oda Nobunaga, who personally went to meet this very special man. Apart from his skin color, what impressed Oda Nobunaga was the height of this foreigner, his exceptional physical strength, as well as his intelligence. He who had learned to speak Japanese very quickly. Amazed by this man, the governor decided to offer him a house, money, and, above all, the highest military rank, that of samurai. He also gave him a Japanese name, Yasuki. As the first foreigner who was given the title of samurai, Yasuki fought bravely alongside Oda Nobunaga. Together, they won many battles against the daimyo. Yasuki was given the nickname of the man whose strength exceeds that of 10 men. Unfortunately, one day, Oda Nobunaga lost his life after a battle. We know that Yasuki survived, but we do not know the rest of his adventure. But one thing is certain, his time in Japan made him a legendary warrior. The Minion, Amazons of Dahomey. 400 years ago, in the kingdom of Dahomey, present-day Benin, lived the first military group made up entirely of women called Minion, our mothers in Fan language. The mission of these warriors was to protect the kingdom from the enemies at all times. To do so, they were trained intensively in body-to-body combat and the use of all kinds of weapons. Considered as half-goddesses, they were venerated by the population who knelt before them as they passed, as a sign of respect and admiration for their strength and bravery. When their enemies who came from Europe faced them for the first time, they were impressed by the fighting spirit and courage of these women. That is why they gave them the nickname of Amazons of Dahomey, in reference to the famous female warriors of Greek mythology. Even today, the Minion are considered one of the bravest group of women who ever lived. The end. Yes, K-Crew! Wasn't this such a wonderful story? And I don't know about you, but this book actually inspired me to go do my own research to learn about more prominent African figures. So shout out to the author. Now, I hope you enjoyed reading this book as much as I did. To find your copy, make sure to head on over to Amazon. And of course, be sure to follow on social media. A big thank you to our author and a huge shout out to her family. And K-Crew, I have to thank you all as well for joining me. But now, it's time to sing goodbye. I know. Here we go. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. My friends, goodbye to you. I hope to see you again real soon. Be proud of all your work tonight. Now climb into bed and sleep real tight. On the count of 3, let's say goodnight. 1, 2...